Lieutenant Katie Murphy stood in the main hallway of the UES Horizon, checking her uniform one last time. The fabric felt stiff against her skin, and she could feel sweat building on her forehead despite the cool air flowing through the ship. Today was inspection day, and everyone knew how important these visits were. The Corvins had been humanity's allies for 3 years now, but calling them friends would be pushing it. They were tall, lizard-like creatures with skin that looked like it was made of green and silver scales. Their bodies were covered in what looked like crystal armor that grew right out of their flesh. When they moved, the crystals made soft clicking sounds that echoed through metal corridors. Katie had spent 2 years learning their language and customs. She knew that Corvins valued strength above all else. They respected direct communication and hated what they saw as weakness or deception. This made dealing with them tricky, since humans often used polite words to soften harsh truths. The airlock door opened with a loud hiss, and cold air rushed into the ship. Katie felt her stomach tighten as 5 Corvin soldiers stepped aboard. Their leader was General Zektar, a massive creature who stood nearly 8 feet tall. His crystal armor was darker than the others, almost black with veins of deep red running through it. His eyes were golden and seemed to glow in the ship's lighting. "Welcome aboard the UES Horizon, General Zektar," Katie said in perfect Corvin. She kept her voice steady and strong, knowing that any sign of fear would be seen as weakness. The general looked down at her with those burning golden eyes. "Human Katie Murphy," he said, using her full name as was proper in Corvin culture. "We will inspect your vessel now. You will guide us and answer all questions truthfully." "Of course, General. Captain John Blake and the crew are ready to assist you in any way needed." Captain Blake stepped forward from where he had been waiting near the bridge entrance. He was a solid man in his 40s, with gray hair and kind eyes that now showed the strain of dealing with alien politics. Behind him stood Dr. Ryan Cole, the ship's medical officer, and engineer Lisa Park, a young woman whose hands were always stained with oil from working on the ship's systems. "General Zektar," Captain Blake said with a slight bow, "the Horizon is at your disposal." The general nodded once, a quick motion that made his crystal armor chime softly. "We will begin with your weapon systems, then move to engineering, medical, bay and crew quarters. Standard procedure." Katie translated quickly for the crew, though most of them already knew the routine. These inspections happened every month when human ships passed through Corvin space. It was the price of safe passage through their territory, and no one complained too loudly about it. The group moved through the ship's corridors, their footsteps echoing off the metal walls. Katie walked beside General Zektar, pointing out various systems and explaining their functions. The other Corvin soldiers spread out, scanning equipment with small devices that beeped and flashed different colors. In the engineering section, Lisa Park showed them the ship's power systems and engines. Her explanations were clear and technical, and Katie could see that the Corvins were impressed despite themselves. Human technology might not be as advanced as theirs, but it was practical and well designed. Dr. Cole took them through the medical bay next, explaining the various treatment devices and showing them samples of human medicines. The Corvins seemed particularly interested in the genetic analysis equipment, asking several detailed questions about how it worked. Everything was going smoothly until they reached the weapons bay. The UES Horizon wasn't a military vessel, but like all ships traveling through dangerous space, it carried defensive weapons. Katie had been through this inspection many times before, and she knew exactly what to expect. The weapons were standard human designs, nothing that would threaten Corvin ships or violate their agreements. But as they entered the weapons bay, General Zektar stopped suddenly. His golden eyes narrowed as he looked at one of the control panels. Katie followed his gaze and felt her heart sink. There were modification panels she had never seen before, additional wiring that didn't match the standard ship designs. "What is this?" the general demanded, his voice growing louder and more threatening. The crystal armor on his arms began to glow with a faint red light, a sign of Corvin anger that Katie had learned to fear. Captain Blake stepped forward, looking as confused as Katie felt. "I don't know, General. Those modifications weren't in our ship's plans." "You lie." General Zektar roared, spinning to face the captain. "You bring weapons into our space and hide them from us. This is deception of the worst kind." Katie quickly moved between the two, raising her hands in a peaceful gesture. "General, please. There must be an explanation. Captain Blake would never knowingly violate our agreements." But the general's anger was already building beyond control. In Corvin culture, being caught in a lie during an official inspection was one of the worst possible insults. It suggested that the other party saw you as weak and stupid, someone who could be easily fooled. "You think we are fools," he shouted, his armor now glowing bright red. "You think you can hide your weapons and we will not notice." "General, please listen," Katie said, but she could see that reason wasn't going to work. The Corvin leader was too angry, too insulted by what he saw as human deception. Without warning, General Zektar's massive hand shot out and slammed into Katie's shoulder. The force of the blow sent her stumbling backward across the small room. Her feet tangled together, and she fell hard against the far wall, her head striking the metal surface with a loud clang. The sound echoed through the weapons bay like a gunshot. Captain Blake's hand immediately moved toward his sidearm while Dr. Cole started forward to help Katie. Lisa Park gasped and took a step back, her eyes wide with shock. "Nobody move," Katie called out from where she lay on the floor, her voice shaky but firm. She could taste blood in her mouth and feel a sharp pain in her shoulder where the general had struck her. But she knew that any aggressive response from the crew could turn this incident into something much worse. The general stood over her, his armor still glowing red with anger, his golden eyes blazing. The other Corvin soldiers had their weapons ready, though they hadn't drawn them yet. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Katie slowly pulled herself up from the floor, using the wall for support. Her head was spinning, and she could feel something warm trickling down the side of her face. But she forced herself to stand straight and meet the general's angry gaze. "The inspection will continue," she said in Corvin, her voice steady despite the pain. "We will find the truth of these modifications." General Zektar stared at her for a long moment, perhaps surprised that she wasn't cowering or making excuses. Finally, he nodded once. "Yes," he said. "We will find the truth. And if you have lied to us, there will be consequences for all humans in Corvin space." As Katie wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand, she couldn't help but notice that something had changed in the wall where she had fallen. A small panel had come loose, revealing dark space behind it. And from that space came a faint humming sound that none of them had heard before. The inspection was about to become much more interesting than anyone had expected. Katie stared at the loose panel in the wall, her heart still beating fast from the general's attack. The humming sound coming from behind it was soft but steady, like the sound of equipment running on low power. She had been on this ship for 6 months and had never heard anything like it. General Zektar noticed the sound too. His golden eyes fixed on the damaged panel, and the red glow in his armor began to fade as curiosity replaced anger. He stepped closer to the wall, his massive form casting a shadow over Katie. "What is that noise?" he demanded, pointing one clawed finger at the panel. Captain Blake moved forward, looking just as confused as everyone else. "I have no idea, General. That panel shouldn't be loose." "Lisa, have you done any work on this section?" Engineer Lisa Park shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I've never touched that wall. According to the ship's plans, there's nothing behind it except empty space between the outer and inner hulls." Dr. Cole knelt beside Katie, checking the cut on her forehead with gentle fingers. "You're going to need a few stitches," he said quietly. "But first we need to figure out what's going on here." General Zektar looked at his soldiers and spoke, in rapid Corvin. Katie caught most of it. He was telling them to scan the wall and find out what was hidden behind it. The soldiers pulled out their scanning devices and pointed them at the loose panel. "General," Katie said, still leaning against the wall for support, "may I suggest we remove the panel carefully? If there is equipment behind it, we don't want to damage it accidentally." The general stared at her for a moment, and Katie wondered if he was impressed that she wasn't crying or complaining about being hurt. Corvin's respected strength and showing weakness now would make everything worse. "Very well," he said finally. Your engineer will remove the panel, my soldiers will watch. Lisa Park nodded and pulled a small toolkit from her belt. Her hands shook slightly as she worked, aware that every move was being watched by armed aliens who already suspected the humans of lying. She carefully removed the screws holding the panel in place. When the panel came away from the wall, everyone gasped. Behind it was a space about 3 feet wide and 2 feet tall, filled with equipment that none of the human crew had ever seen before. Cables ran in neat bundles along the walls, connected to devices that blinked with soft blue and green lights. The humming sound was coming from a box-shaped machine in the center of it all. "What is this?" Captain Blake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This equipment isn't on any of our ship's blueprints." General Zektar pushed past him and examined the hidden equipment more closely. His armor was no longer glowing red, but Katie could see tension in the way he held his massive shoulders. "These are scanning devices," he said slowly. "Very advanced scanning devices." One of his soldiers, a smaller Corvan with silver armor, stepped forward and spoke in their language. Katie translated automatically in her head. He was saying that the equipment was designed to scan for biological signatures. "Biological signatures?" Dr. Cole repeated when Katie translated. "You mean it's medical equipment?" The silver-armored soldier nodded and continued speaking. Katie's eyes widened as she understood what he was saying. "He says the scanners are specifically designed to detect Corvan genetic markers. They're looking for something in Corvan biology." The weapons bay fell silent except for the soft humming of the hidden equipment. General Zektar straightened up slowly, his golden eyes fixed on Captain Blake. "Explain this," he said in a voice that was somehow more frightening than when he had been shouting. "I can't explain it," Captain Blake said honestly. "I've never seen this equipment before. As far as I knew, we had standard human systems throughout the ship." Katie pushed herself away from the wall, ignoring the pain in her head and shoulder. Something was forming in her mind, a possibility that made her stomach feel cold. "Dr. Cole," she said carefully, "didn't you mention that you received some new medical equipment before we left Earth? Equipment that was classified?" Dr. Cole's face went pale. "Yes, but that was for the medical bay. Standard research equipment for studying alien biology. They said it was to help us better understand our allies." "What kind of research?" General Zektar demanded. Dr. Cole looked at Captain Blake, who nodded for him to continue. "The medical department on Earth has been studying samples of Corvan tissue that were provided through official channels. They're trying to understand Corvan biology better, to help with medical emergencies if any of your people are injured while visiting human ships." The general's armor began to glow again, but this time it was a different color, a deep blue that Katie had never seen before. She didn't know what it meant, but it didn't look angry. "What did your research find?" he asked, quietly. Dr. Cole hesitated. "I'm not supposed to talk about classified research, but under the circumstances," he looked around at the hidden equipment, then back at the general. "We found signs of genetic degradation in some of the tissue samples, a slow breakdown of cellular structure that could eventually lead to serious health problems." The silver-armored Corvan soldier spoke rapidly to his general, who listened with growing intensity. Then Zektar turned to his soldier and said something that made all the Corvans look shocked. "What did he say?" Captain Blake asked. Katie felt her mouth go dry. "He said that the soldier's scans show signs of the same genetic degradation that Dr. Cole was talking about. The hidden equipment detected it." General Zektar moved to stand directly in front of Dr. Cole. "How long have you known about this condition?" "About 6 months, Dr. Cole admitted. But we weren't sure it was a real problem. The samples we had were old, and we thought the degradation might have happened after they were taken." "It is not from age," the general said grimly. "Sub-Commander Velra has been feeling weakness for many months. We thought it was battle fatigue. But if your scans are correct," the silver-armored soldier, Sub-Commander Velra, spoke again, and this time Katie could hear fear in the alien's voice. The translation made her heart race. "The equipment shows the condition in 3 of us, including you, General." "General?" Zektar stood very still for a long moment. Then he turned to look at the hidden scanning equipment again. This was not meant to spy on us, he said slowly. This was meant to help us. Yes, Dr. Cole said quickly. The research team on Earth has been working on treatments. They think human genetic therapy might be adapted to help Corvins with this condition. Katie saw something she had never expected to see. Uncertainty in General Zektar's golden eyes. The proud, aggressive alien leader suddenly looked like someone who had just learned that he was sick and didn't know what to do about it. Why was this kept secret, he asked. Captain Blake stepped forward. Because our governments wanted to be sure the research was accurate before we said anything. No one wanted to cause panic or give false hope. And because, Katie added carefully, human leaders weren't sure how Corvins would react to being told that humans had discovered a weakness in Corvin biology. General Zektar looked at her, and for the first time since she had known him, his expression was not angry or demanding. You thought we would see it as an insult? Yes, General. We thought you might believe we were trying to show that humans were superior. The general was quiet for a long time, staring at the blinking lights of the hidden medical equipment. Finally, he spoke. The shove that revealed this equipment may have saved many lives. Katie touched the cut on her forehead and managed a small smile. Sometimes the worst things lead to the best discoveries, General. General Zektar stared at the blinking medical equipment for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Katie could see the conflict in his golden eyes. The proud warrior was struggling with the idea that his people needed help, especially from humans who the Corvins had always considered less advanced. Sub-Commander Velra moved closer to the hidden scanners, her silver armor catching the light from the various displays. She spoke to the general in quick, urgent Corvin words. Katie, translated quietly for the human crew. She's saying that the weakness she's been feeling makes sense now. Muscle fatigue, slower healing, problems with concentration. She thought she was just getting old. Dr. Cole stepped forward carefully, not wanting to seem threatening. General, if I may ask, how many of your people have been experiencing similar symptoms? The general looked at his medical officer and spoke in Corvin. The response made his armor glow with that deep blue color again. Too many, he said in English. Velra says perhaps 1 in every 50 Corvins shows signs of this weakness. We thought it was a new kind of battle fatigue from our recent wars. Captain, Blake moved to stand beside Katie. General, our medical teams on Earth have been working on this problem for months. They believe they can help. How? General Zektar demanded. Human medicine is designed for human biology. What works for you might kill us, Dr. Cole nodded. That's exactly why the research has taken so long. We've been very careful to understand Corvin genetics first. The good news is that the condition seems to be caused by a problem with cellular repair mechanisms. Human genetic therapy has dealt with similar issues in our own people. Katie watched as the general processed this information. She could see him fighting between his natural suspicion and the hope that his people might be saved. What kind of treatments? She asked Dr. Cole, knowing that the question would be easier to answer if it came from her rather than directly from the Corvin leader. Gene therapy using modified human stem cells, Dr. Cole explained. We introduce healthy repair mechanisms into the affected cells. It's been tested on tissue samples with promising results. Sub-Commander Velra spoke again, and this time her voice was stronger. Katie could hear hope mixed with the fear. She wants to know if the treatment is painful or dangerous. Some discomfort during the initial treatment, Dr. Cole admitted, but much less dangerous than letting the condition progress. Left untreated, it eventually causes complete cellular breakdown. The words hit General Zektar like a physical blow. His massive form seemed to shrink slightly as he realized what that meant. Death, he said simply. Yes, General. Eventually. Katie felt her heart break a little as she watched the proud alien leader struggle with this news. She made a decision that could have gotten her in serious trouble with both governments. Dr. Cole, can you contact the research team on Earth right now? Katie, Captain Blake said in a warning voice. We don't have authorization for direct communication about classified research. Captain, she said firmly, I think this situation is beyond normal protocols. General Zektar and his people are dying and we might be able to help them. Isn't that more important than paperwork? General Zektar looked at her with something that might have been respect. You would risk punishment from your own leaders to help us? Yes, General. That's what allies do for each other. The big alien was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. Make your communication, Dr. Cole. Dr. Cole hesitated, looking at Captain Blake for guidance. The captain thought for a moment, then sighed. Do it. I'll take responsibility for breaking protocol. As Dr. Cole moved to the ship's communication system, Lisa Park approached the hidden medical equipment. General, may I examine these scanners more closely? I might be able to improve their efficiency. General Zektar gestured for her to proceed. What improvements could you make? Lisa studied the displays and cables for several minutes, her engineer's mind working through the problems she saw. The power distribution isn't optimal, and some of the scanning frequencies seem to overlap. I could probably increase accuracy by about 30% and reduce the scanning time by half. Subcommander Velra spoke to the general, and Katie could see excitement in the alien's body language. She says that faster, more accurate scans would let us test many more Corvins quickly. Yes, Lisa said, understanding even though she didn't speak Corvin. If this condition is as widespread as you think, you'll need to scan thousands of people. These modifications would make that much easier. General Zektar watched as the young human engineer began making careful adjustments to equipment that was far more advanced than anything humans normally used. Her confidence and skill were impressive, and Katie could see that the general was beginning to understand that humans had abilities that weren't always obvious. Dr. Cole's voice came from across the room. I've got Dr. Patricia Wong on the line, from the Earth Research Station. She's the lead researcher on the Corvin genetic project. Put her on speaker, Katie said, then looked at General Zektar. General, would you be willing to speak directly with our research team? The alien leader nodded, then moved to stand near the communication console. Dr. Wong, he said in heavily accented English, I am General Zektar of the Corvin Defense Force. I understand you have been studying my people's biology. The voice that came through the speaker was clear and professional. General Zektar, it's an honor to speak with you directly. Yes, we've been researching the genetic condition that affects some Corvins. I'm surprised that you know about our work. Katie quickly explained how the hidden scanners had been discovered and what they had revealed about the Corvin crew members. Dr. Wong listened without interrupting, though they could hear her sharp intake of breath when Katie described the scope of the problem. General, Dr. Wong said when Katie finished, we've developed a treatment protocol that we believe will be effective, but we've only tested it on tissue samples. We would need volunteer patients to move to human trials. I volunteer, Subcommander Velra said immediately in clear English, surprising everyone. Velra, no, General Zektar said in Corvin. It's too dangerous. But the silver-armored soldier stood straight and spoke with determination. General, I am already dying slowly. If there is a chance this treatment can save not just me but thousands of our people, I must take that risk. Katie translated for Dr. Wong, who was quiet for a moment before responding. Subcommander, I admire your courage, but the general is right to be cautious. This would be the first time we've used the treatment on a living Corvin. There could be unexpected reactions. What? Do you need to make the treatment as safe as possible? General Zektar asked. Complete medical scans of the volunteer, detailed analysis of their specific genetic markers, and a full medical facility with both human and Corvin medical staff standing by. The treatment itself takes about 6 hours, followed by several days of monitoring. Lisa Park looked up from her work on the scanner equipment. I've got the modifications finished. The scanners should be much more accurate now. We could do those detailed medical scans right here. General Zektar looked around the weapons bay that had become an impromptu medical research center. Humans and Corvins were working together, sharing knowledge and resources to solve a problem that threatened thousands of lives. It was not what he had expected when he boarded the ship for a routine inspection. Dr. Wong, he said finally, how quickly can you prepare the treatment for Subcommander Velra? If we start immediately, we could have everything ready in 12 hours, but General, are you certain about this? General Zektar looked at his medical officer, then at Katie and the human crew who had risked their careers to help his people. Dr. Wong, sometimes the greatest victories come from the most unexpected battles. We will proceed with the treatment. The next 12 hours changed everything aboard the UES Horizon. What had started as a simple diplomatic vessel became a floating medical research center, with humans and Corvins working side by side in ways that neither species had ever imagined. Katie found herself in the middle of it all, translating not just words but ideas and concepts that didn't exist in both languages. She moved between the medical bay where Dr. Cole was preparing treatment equipment and the weapons bay, where Lisa Park had turned the hidden scanners into a full diagnostic center. Sub-Commander Velra lay on a modified examination table in the medical bay, her silver armor removed to reveal the scaled skin underneath. Without the armor, she looked smaller and more fragile, though Katie was careful not to let that thought show on her face. Corvins were proud of their strength, and showing pity would be seen as an insult. The scans show the genetic damage is more advanced than we thought, Dr. Cole explained to General Zektar, who stood watching every procedure with intense focus. But that actually gives us a better chance to see if the treatment works. Dr. Wong's voice came through the communication system from Earth. Sub-Commander, are you experiencing any pain right now? Velra spoke in Corvin, and Katie translated. She says there's a constant ache in her muscles and joints, like being tired all the time, but rest doesn't help. That matches what we expected, Dr. Wong replied. The cellular repair mechanisms are failing, so the body can't recover from normal daily stress. The treatment should fix that. General Zektar moved closer to the examination table. Velra, you can still change your mind? No one will think less of you. The sub-commander looked at her general with determination in her golden eyes. Sir, if I die from this treatment, at least I die trying to save our people. If I die from the disease, I die for nothing. Katie felt a chill run down her spine at the simple courage in those words. She had seen human soldiers show the same kind of bravery, but somehow it was more powerful coming from someone who had been an enemy just hours before. Captain Blake entered the medical bay carrying a portable computer. Dr. Wong, we've established a secure link with the Corvin High Command. They want to observe the procedure. A new voice came through the speakers, speaking in formal Corvin. Katie translated automatically. High Commander Vexikar says that the entire Corvin leadership is watching. They're impressed that humans are willing to risk their own careers to help us. General Zektar's armor glowed with that deep blue color again. Tell the High Commander that these humans have shown more honor in 12 hours than we have seen from some allies in years. Lisa Park's voice called from the weapons bay. Dr. Cole, the enhanced scanners are ready. We can monitor the sub-commander's cellular activity in real time during the treatment. Perfect, Dr. Cole said, checking his instruments one more time. Dr. Wong, are you ready to guide us through the procedure? Ready here. Remember, the genetic therapy will take about 2 hours to complete. Then we need 4 hours of monitoring before we'll know if it's working. Katie positioned herself where she could see both the sub-commander and the medical displays, ready to translate anything that happened. General Zektar stood on the other side of the table, his massive presence somehow comforting rather than threatening. Dr. Cole began the treatment, carefully injecting the modified human stem cells into specific points along Velra's spine. The sub-commander closed her eyes but didn't make a sound, even though Katie could see tension in her scaled features. The stem cells are designed to seek out damaged genetic sequences and repair them, Dr. Wong explained as they worked. We've modified them to be compatible with Corvin biology, but this is still experimental. For the first hour, nothing seemed to happen. The displays showed the stem cells moving through Velra's system, but there was no obvious change in her condition. General Zektar watched the screens with the intensity of someone studying a battle plan. Then, halfway through the second hour, something changed. Lisa Park's voice came from the enhanced scanners. Dr. Cole, I'm seeing increased cellular activity in the areas where the stem cells are concentrated. Is that good or bad? Katie asked, voicing the question that everyone was thinking. It's exactly what we hoped for, Dr. Wong said, excitement clear in her voice. The repair mechanisms are starting to work. Velra opened her eyes and looked at General Zektar. Sir, the constant ache is lessening. Katie translated, and she could see hope beginning to replace worry in the general's golden eyes. But Dr. Cole held up a warning hand. It's too early to celebrate. The real test comes in the next few hours. The stem cells have to integrate properly with the existing tissue or the treatment could fail. The waiting was the hardest part. Katie found herself pacing between the medical bay and the weapons bay, checking on different aspects of the treatment. She discovered that she wasn't the only one who couldn't sit still. General Zektar moved constantly around the medical bay, his armor chiming softly with each step. During the third hour, Captain Blake received a message that made everyone stop what they were doing. General, we're receiving a transmission from a Corvan fleet. 3 ships approaching fast. General Zektar's armor immediately began glowing red. They think you are holding me prisoner. Can you contact them? Katie asked quickly. Let them know you're here voluntarily. The general moved to the communication console and spoke rapidly in Corvan. Katie caught most of it. He was explaining the situation and ordering the fleet to maintain distance but be ready to assist if needed. The response came back just as quickly, and General Zektar's expression changed to something Katie had never seen before: embarrassment. What did they say? Captain Blake asked. High Commander Vexkar is aboard the lead ship, the general admitted. He came personally to oversee the treatment. He says that if the humans can save Corvan lives, then the Corvan Defense Force owes them a debt of honor. Dr. Cole looked up from his monitors. General, Sub-Commander Velra's cellular repair mechanisms are functioning at nearly normal levels. The treatment appears to be working. Velra sat up slowly on the examination table, moving with more energy than she had shown in months. The ache is almost gone, she said in English, her voice filled with wonder. I feel stronger. The stem cells have successfully integrated, Dr. Wong confirmed from Earth. Sub-Commander, you'll need to take it easy for a few days while your body adjusts, but the treatment has been successful. General Zektar stood very still for a moment, then did something that shocked everyone in the room. He removed his helmet, revealing a reptilian face with golden eyes that were now wet with tears. Dr. Cole, Dr. Wong, all of you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You have given my people hope when we had none. How do we repay such a gift? Katie stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. General, the greatest repayment would be to work together, share knowledge, help each other, and make sure no one else has to suffer from this disease. The general looked at her, then at the human crew who had risked everything to help his people. Sub-Commander Velra, send a message to all Corvan medical facilities. Tell them we have found partners who will help us heal our people. As Velra began composing the message, Katie realized that the inspection that had started with violence and suspicion had become something much more important. It had become the beginning of true friendship between 2 species who had never trusted each other before. 3 months later, Katie Murphy stood on the observation deck of what used to be the UES Horizon. The ship had been renamed the Research Station Unity and permanently stationed at the edge of Corvan space. Through the large windows, she could see 3 human vessels and 4 Corvan ships docked to the expanding station. The cut on her forehead had healed months ago, leaving only a small scar that she sometimes touched when she was thinking. Today, she wore the uniform of an interspecies medical coordinator, a rank that hadn't existed before the inspection that changed everything. Coordinator Murphy, we're ready for the ceremony, came a voice behind her. Katie turned to see Dr. Cole approaching, followed by Captain Blake and Lisa Park. All of them wore new uniforms, marking their roles in the joint Human-Corvan research project. How many Corvans have been treated so far? Katie asked as they walked toward the main assembly hall. Over 2,000, Dr. Cole replied with satisfaction. The treatment success rate is 97%. Sub-Commander Velra has become something of a hero to her people. She's been traveling to Corvan colonies, encouraging others to seek treatment. The assembly hall had been redesigned to accommodate both human and Corvan physiology. The ceiling was high enough for the tallest Corvans, while the seating could be adjusted for human comfort. Today it was filled with representatives from both species, including some very important visitors. General Zektar stood near the front of the hall, his black and red armor polished to a brilliant shine. Beside him was High Commander Vexkar, the leader of all Corvan military forces. On the human side, Admiral Sarah Martinez represented Earth's colonial authority, while Dr. Wong had arrived from Earth just for this ceremony. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored Corvan allies," Admiral Martinez began, "we gather today to celebrate not just the success of our medical cooperation, but the birth of a new kind of partnership between our species." Katie took her place at the speaking platform, feeling nervous despite all her experience with diplomatic events. The words she was about to speak would be broadcast to both Earth and the Corvan homeworld. "3 months ago," she began, "General Zektar shoved me against a wall during what should have been a routine inspection. At the time, it seemed like the worst possible thing that could happen. Today, I want to thank him for that shove because it led to the discovery that saved thousands of lives." A ripple of surprised laughter went through the human section of the audience, while the Corvans made their equivalent sound of amusement, a soft chiming from their armor. General Zektar stepped forward to the platform. "Coordinator Murphy is too modest," he said in English that had improved dramatically over the past 3 months. "The equipment that saved my people was already there, hidden behind that wall. But it took human courage and quick thinking to turn a moment of conflict into an opportunity for cooperation." He reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out something that made the entire Corvan section of the audience fall silent. It was a crystal medal in the shape of a star, made from the same material as Corvan armor, but polished until it was perfectly clear. "This is the Star of Unity," General Zektar announced. "It has never been given to a non-Corvan before. Coordinator Murphy, you are the first human to receive the highest honor that my people can give." Katie felt her eyes fill with tears as the general placed the crystal star on her uniform. The weight of it was surprising, not heavy, but solid and warm, as if it contained some kind of energy. "But this ceremony is not just about honoring individuals," High Commander Vexkar said, stepping forward. "Today we announce the formal establishment of the Human Corvan Medical Alliance." Admiral Martinez nodded and activated a holographic display that showed the terms of the new agreement. "Both species will share medical knowledge freely. Human genetic therapy techniques will be taught to Corvan doctors, while Corvan crystal technology will be used to improve human medical equipment." Lisa Park raised her hand. "Admiral, what about the engineering cooperation? The improvements we've made to ship systems by combining human and Corvan technology?" "That brings us to the second announcement," the Admiral replied with a smile. "The Unity Station will also serve as a joint engineering research facility. We've seen what amazing things can happen when human creativity meets Corvan advanced materials." Dr. Cole stepped up to the microphone. "The medical benefits alone have been incredible. The enhanced scanners that Lisa developed can now detect over 50 different genetic conditions in both species. We're not just treating the Corvan cellular degradation anymore, we're preventing dozens of other diseases before they become serious." Sub-Commander Velra, now wearing the silver and blue armor of a medical officer, spoke from the audience. "The human doctors taught us that healing is not just about fixing what is broken. They showed us how to prevent problems before they start. This wisdom has changed how we think about medicine." Katie looked out at the mixed crowd of humans and Corvans, all working together on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. "The most amazing thing," she said, "is how much we've learned from each other. Humans showed Corvans that asking for help is not weakness, it's wisdom. Corvans showed humans that true strength comes from protecting others, even when it costs you something important." General Zektar's armor glowed with that deep blue color that Katie had learned meant deep emotion. "When I first met these humans, I thought they were weak because they seemed afraid of conflict. Now I understand that avoiding unnecessary fights takes more courage than starting them." Captain Blake stepped forward. "General, speaking of conflict, what's the status of the border disputes that brought us together in the first place?" "Resolved," High Commander Vexkar said simply. "When species work together to save lives, arguing about territory seemed small." The ceremony continued for another hour, with speakers from both species talking about joint research projects, cultural exchange programs, and plans for expanding the medical alliance to other alien species that both humans and Corvins had encountered. As the formal part of the ceremony ended, Katie found herself standing with General Zektar on the observation deck where the day had started. Through the windows they could see the lights of ships from both their worlds, and the construction framework of new research facilities being added to the station. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't shoved me that day?" Katie asked. The general was quiet for a moment, his golden eyes reflecting the stars outside. "I think about it often. Thousands of my people would have died slowly, and neither of our species would have learned what we could accomplish together. So, you don't regret it?" "No," he said firmly. "But I regret that it took violence to reveal the truth. In the future, I hope we can find better ways to discover what we have in common." Katie touched the crystal star on her uniform and smiled. "General, I think that push didn't just save Corvin lives. It pushed both our species toward a better future." As they stood there watching the stars, Katie realized that sometimes the most important moments in history came from the most unexpected places. A routine inspection had become a medical breakthrough. A moment of anger had become the foundation of lasting friendship. And a shove that seemed meant to hurt had become the push that launched two species toward the stars together. In the distance, she could see the lights of new ships arriving, some human, some Corvin, and some that represented the first joint construction projects between their peoples. The future was bright, and it had all started with one angry general, one hidden wall panel in 5 minutes that changed everything.